Welcome everyone to How to Establish a Solo 401k and Lock in 2025 Benefits. My name is Leah with Sense Financial, and we are a boutique financial firm specializing in self-directed retirement accounts with checkbook control. Our presenter today is Brad Sininsky, and I briefly want to introduce Brad. He is a solo 401k and SDRA consultant here at Sense Financial, and he has a professional journey spanning over 18 years in real estate investing. Brad is also a licensed California real estate agent, and his passion lies in empowering people to attain financial independence, affording them the possibility of an early retirement. Thank you for joining us today, Brad, and I'll let you take it from here.
All right. Thank you. Once again, confirm you can see my screen and hear me okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Yes. By the way, when I look to my left, it's because I have another monitor, everybody. So I'm looking at who's in and what's going on over there. So just want to make you aware of that. But yes, thank you very much for joining us today. We are going to talk about 2025 benefits, and we're actually going to talk about how it's actually not too late to set up a solo 401k for 2024 as well. So we'll talk about that towards the end of the presentation. But thank you for joining us. We are not a fiduciary. We don't provide legal or tax, investment, accounting, or other professional advice. If you need such advice, please seek out the competent professional in that area. And before we get into this, I want to talk about why us briefly. Well, we've been in business since 2010. We have well over 3,000 clients, and we've set up over 4,000 self-directed retirement accounts for those clients. Most of our business comes from referrals. Most of that comes from existing clients. So that by itself is a testament that we do a pretty good job for our clients, but there's also third-party testimonials out there on Trustpilot, BiggerPockets, Google, Yelp, and elsewhere that you can check out. We have 5-star reviews all over the place. This is not meant to be braggadocio at all, but meant to encourage you to, before you make a decision of who to do business with, to check reviews. And so I encourage you to do that. And ours tell, I think, a pretty good story. So thank you for that. Our mission is to help clients obtain control of and protect their retirement accounts. Proverbs 21:5 says, good planning and hard work lead to prosperity. And you work hard for your money. We want to come alongside you and work hard for you in this capacity as well, and help you grow your retirement to be able to retire someday with dignity. First off, we have the difference. We have to establish the difference between conventional versus self-directed. If you're on this call, you probably have a pretty good idea of what self-directed retirement account means, but I'm going to cover it anyway. On the left there, you have your conventional train, bus, whatever you want to call it. It's on the track. You have to get a ride or walk to the pickup and the drop off to get to your next destination. It's fixed to a certain route. It does serve a purpose. It gets you from one place to another, but it's somewhat restrictive in where it can go and the timing and all that stuff. That's your conventional investing. Think stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and more recently ETFs, right? Vanguard, Fidelity, T. Rowe Price, Schwab, Edward Jones, those types of companies. Nothing wrong with that. I've got money in the stock market. It's okay to have some diversification, but at the end of the day, you don't have as much control in the stock market as you do in a self-directed account. And the self-directed account is demonstrated by the off-road vehicle, where you can go. I wouldn't recommend going on train tracks. You could with it. That's probably something you should stay away from, but you could certainly drive over them. However, you can go off the road. You can go on the road. You could follow a similar route that the train follows as well. But you can also go wherever else you want. And that is the self-directed side of things, which allows you for true diversification. Ecclesiastes 11:2 says, divide your portion to 7 or even to 8, for you do not know what misfortune may occur on the earth. And probably the most recent example is COVID-19. Prior to that, it was the Great Recession of 2008, 9, and some of 10. And clients that had self-directed accounts, or not even a self-directed retirement account, but a lot of their investing was in a hard asset like real estate that was kicking off consistent returns in terms of payments or rental payments or what have you.
Hi,
Felt
Brett. Sorry
Yes.
to cut you off. We have a question here from Stephen. He said that he is unable to hear our sound. Stephen, are you able to hear us now?
Well, hopefully
Mhm.
everybody else can hear. If you can hear me, Leah, I'm going to
I can
assume
hear you.
I'm going to
Mhm.
assume that everybody else can hear me. If somebody else on the call can give us a thumbs up, yes, there's a thumbs up. Okay, yeah, we're going to continue. Stephen, I'm sorry. Maybe log out and log back in, and we'll see if that fixes the problem. But it seems to be on your end, so hopefully you're able to resolve that. But no worries. Thank you for interrupting me on that. So people who were invested in hard assets like real estate were getting consistent returns, and they were able to um, weather the storm, so to speak. Not just the little blip that COVID caused, but also the bigger one that 2008, 9, and 10 caused. So you just don't know what's coming. That's my point. But the self-directed retirement allows you true diversification, because if you want, you can invest in Wall Street. Absolutely. However, you can also invest in real estate, both residential, commercial. You can invest in precious metals. You can invest in cryptocurrency like Bitcoin. You can become the bank. You can be a private lender. You can originate mortgages. You can invest in mortgages using your IRA through a broker who sells those kinds of notes. And there's almost no limit, right? I will talk about what you can't invest in later, because that's all the IRS says. There is no way to make an exhaustive list of what you can invest in, because there's only a couple things that they say you can't. But we'll talk about that here a few slides from now. We offer two products. Okay, we have a self-directed IRA and a solo 401k. I am going to focus mostly on the solo 401k in this call, but I'm also going to briefly touch on the self-directed IRA first. But before I do that, I'm going to give just a quick demonstration of Brad and Jennifer out of Phoenix, Arizona. Yes, their names were changed to protect them. Brad and Jennifer are real estate agents, also married, and they came to us a while back and said, hey, I've got all this money in a former employer 401k, an IRA here, an IRA there. I heard about this self-directed retirement stuff. I'm in real estate. I want to invest in real estate. I can do it personally, but I heard you can do it in your retirement account. And so upon the discovery of the conversation, we found out they were self-employed and therefore qualified for a solo 401k, and they had no employees, which is another requirement. And so we established a solo 401k for them. And so their goal was diversification. Yes, they wanted to invest in the stock market, but they also wanted to invest in real estate. And what they did is they invested in real estate in a big way, primarily in their Roth bucket of the 401k. We'll talk more about that. And rentals, single family, and commercial multifamily as well. And so the result is that they have millions of dollars in real estate in the Roth 401k, which, if you know about Roth, it's tax-free ATM withdrawals at retirement. So it's good stuff. Okay. The two options I talked about, let me touch on that real quick. The self-directed IRA is for anybody. That's why there's a diverse group in that picture there. The solo 401k has a self-employment requirement attached to it. It's primarily for the business owner and their spouse. In fact, you cannot have full-time W-2 employees outside of yourself and your spouse and still qualify for a solo 401k, hence the word solo. At that point, you are getting into a group 401k plan. And side note, I've heard recently that more plan documents, administrators for group 401k plans, it's still very uncommon, but some of them are actually allowing for alternative asset, self-directed type investing. So if you work for a small company, or you're an employer that has employees and don't qualify for solo 401k, you might look into getting a group 401k plan that still allows for self-directing. I digress. Let's talk about the checkbook IRA and how it works briefly before we get into the solo 401k. So it's also known as the IRA LLC. And so what we do is we actually open a new account with an IRS approved custodian. Now, this isn't just any custodian like Fidelity or Vanguard. This is a custodian that allows for alternative assets, non-Wall Street assets. And once we open that up, we'll actually help you set up the qualified transfer. This can come from any current IRA, whether it's Roth or traditional, a 401k, a 403b. Typically, the 401k, 403b need to be from a former employer, but some plans, if you're over 50, allow for what's called an in-service rollover. And so ask your plan administrator if you're over 50, if they allow for that, because you may be able to roll some of your funds over from that current employer situation. You stay employed there, but you roll some funds into a self-directed account. So it's worth asking the question. Actually, about 2/3 of plans actually allow that. So more than half. And so once that's set up, we'll also create a special purpose LLC. Now, this LLC is what allows us to bypass the custodian when you're making investments, right? The custodian is still involved for the transfers, Roth conversions, distributions, annual valuation. They're still involved for that. But when it comes to the day-to-day transactions, especially if you're investing in something like real estate with your IRA, it's very laborious to have to go through the red tape of contacting the custodian for all transactions. In fact, I've heard stories of clients actually missing out on investment opportunities because they did not have checkbook control and they had to go through the custodian. The custodian was dragging their feet on signing the documents and wiring the money. So they missed out on the opportunity. With the checkbook IRA and the LLC, you avoid that. You avoid the red tape of paying a plumber to go do some work on a rental property because you have the checkbook control of the LLC. You can just do an online bill pay, write a check, swipe your debit card, whatever it is. And so the special purpose LLC is formed. The sole member and the sole owner is the IRA. You are a non-owner manager of the LLC. So you have manager level access, which allows you this checkbook control. Once that's set up, the bank account is funded. The bank account is opened. The LLC is funded. So the money first transfers to the custodian and then it transfers to the LLC inside that checking account. And then you're able to self-direct at that point. Once this is done, when you start to self-direct, all the investment money must go into and out of that checking account. So think of the checking account as the home for the funds until they're deployed into whatever asset that you choose. All right. So that's the self-directed IRA. Checkbook IRA, IRA LLC, interchangeable words there, interchangeable monikers. Okay, how does the solo 401k work? Well, first of all, you do need to have that plan sponsor. This is your self-employment. You can be sole proprietor, a corporation, S Corp, C Corp, LLC partnership, any type of business structure actually can qualify to sponsor a solo 401k. Again, if you don't have any, as long as you don't have full-time W-2 employees outside of yourself and a spouse. Now, once you have established that you qualify to adopt the plan, the plan sponsor, that's the company you have, adopts the plan documents, and the trust is created. And so once that happens, you are named as the trustee. You can have a co-trustee, but you're the trustee of the trust. So all the assets of the plan are in the trust. The cash, the investments, everything are in this trust. And so with that power as the trustee, you can open an account. A bank account is opened. That's, again, like the IRA, that's the home for the funds until you deploy them into an investment. You can also open an account really at any financial institution or brokerage. It's a little bit harder with the IRA to do that. If you wanted to invest in Wall Street with it, typically it's best to just keep it into a traditional style IRA at Vanguard if you want to have some of those funds still in Wall Street. But with the solo 401k, it's possible to open a brokerage account at any firm and have the money in the solo 401k invested in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, ETFs, as well as simultaneously doing alternative assets like real estate, private lending, etc. So Just like the IRA, the money goes out of and into that checking account so that it's in the 401k, right? And so that's important. You may not be self-employed. I'm going to spend just a minute on this. It's not hard to be self-employed, okay? There's tremendous benefits to it, potentially. You have the lowest tax bracket possible. There's tons of business expenses that you can write off. You can have deductions of your home office, mileage, vehicle, etc. You can work from your house. You can make more money typically. You could be your own boss. Sometimes depending on your business, you can build residual style income. But to be self-employed, to qualify for a 401k, a solo 401k, you could be a real estate agent. You could sell one house every other year and qualify for a 401k, solo 401k. You could mow lawns on the weekends, file a Schedule C for that income, and have a solo 401k. You can sell stuff on eBay. You can join a network marketing company and sell, I don't know, makeup or whatever. And you could probably do that as a sole prop to begin with, but that can qualify to sponsor a solo 401k. So don't think that just because you're not currently self-employed that your situation may not change down the road. A lot of our clients are real estate agents, investors, fix and flippers, and they have solo 401ks. And for those of you out there that don't want to go through the effort of being self-employed, whether it's hard or easy, it doesn't matter. The self-directed IRA is an option for you. That's why we do both. All right, so the solo 401k has very high contribution limits, almost 10 times, literally, actually, if you're under 50, 10 times the amount of an IRA. So if you're under 50, actually I have this broken down on the next slide, but it's broken down between employer contributions and employee contributions. Proverbs 21:10 says, "The wise man saves for the future, but the foolish man spends whatever he gets." So save, save, save. Yes, live on less than you make, of course. So here's how it works. You have the employee deferral, employee elective deferral, employee contribution. These are all interchangeable terms for the employee contribution of up to $23,500. This is up $500 from 2025. If you're over 50, you have another $7,500 catch-up contribution on that. Now, this can be up to 100% of your self-employment earnings. Okay, so basically what that means is if you W-2 yourself, if you're an S Corp and you're running payroll, if you W-2 yourself for like 25,000, you can contribute up to 23,500. You have to account for FICA and Medicare, check with your CPA on what those numbers need to look like, or the payroll company. But essentially, if you don't need that money to live on and you only want to pay yourself the minimum to be able to maximize the contribution, you could pay yourself around 25 or so to contribute 23,500. The contributions must be made within a week of paying yourself, so you can process it on the payroll or fill out the contribution form if you're not running payroll and just transfer the money as soon as you can. There is some nuance to that with the sole proprietor situation I'll talk about. And these contributions can be either pre-tax or Roth contributions, either way. And then the other hat that you wear, being self-employed, you are also an employer. You're an employee and you're an employer. And so that allows you to do what's called profit sharing. The IRS actually allows that. This is a tax-deferred contribution, always upfront. It can turn into Roth. I'll talk about that. But it's a tax-deferred. It's a business expense for the business, profit sharing. So if you're an S Corp, C Corp, your corporation, it's 25% of the self-employment compensation. So 25% of the W-2, right? So $100,000 W-2, then 25,000 on top of whatever you do for the elective deferral. And it's important to note, it's the W-2, the total gross W-2. So you don't subtract the employee deferral and then calculate the percentage of profit sharing. You don't do that. It's actually the gross amount of the W-2. So it includes your employee deferral as well. And it's 20% of the profit of the company for a sole proprietor or single member LLC. Okay, so that's how you get up to $70,000 for 2025, or 77,500 if you're over 50, is between those two buckets. Okay. Now, if you're employed at a W-2 job and you're contributing to that 401k, you can't double dip on the employee deferral. You can do both, but up to an individual person maximum of 23.5 or 31,000 if you're over if you're 50 and up. Okay, so hopefully that's clear on how the contribution limits work. You can use leverage. This is not something you can do in the S&P 500. I suppose you could trade futures or options or whatever it's called to be able to get money, to borrow money for trading in Wall Street, but most people aren't doing that. And I don't know that I feel like that's gambling, but that's a whole nother conversation. But with real estate, for example, you can get a loan inside for your IRA or 401k, and you can buy more property. 30 to 50% down is what it's going to take. It has to be non-recourse, which means you can't make a personal guarantee. The property is the only security. So your credit, your income, none of that is a factor. It's just the property. You do have to have some reserves. And so I just talked to somebody this morning who's going to transfer a traditional IRA of about $330,000 into an IRA LLC, and he's going to buy real estate. And he was clear on this before I said it, but I made it clear. I wanted him to know you do need to have some reserves. Even if you're buying with cash, don't transfer over $330,000 and buy a $330,000 property. You need some reserves because you can't pay for anything personally for that property. You can't pay for the roof to be repaired out of your personal funds or a credit card. You can't do that. It has to come from the retirement account. Okay. So you do need some reserves. The lender, if you get a non-recourse loan, will require a certain amount of reserves. We do have a list of lenders on our website. If you want to check out non-recourse lenders, there's probably 8 or 10 on there that you can look through that have different terms and conditions and offerings. And then it's important to note that this will trigger a UDFI, unrelated debt finance income tax, for an IRA. The solo 401k is exempt from UDFI tax, but the IRA is not. And that actually triggers what's called UBIT. And at the risk of going down a rabbit hole on this, I'll explain it briefly. UBIT tax, or UBIT, is unrelated business income tax. The retirement account is designed to be invested passively, not actively. So there's 2 ways that UBIT is triggered. One is if you are running an active business in the IRA or 401k. By the way, when I say IRA, I mean 401k, IRA, all of it. There is if you're running an active business, an example, flipping a bunch of real estate, okay, that's going to be active business income. That's going to be subject to UBIT tax, which scales up to 37%. So it can be pretty hefty, something to be aware of. The other way, not just active business running, but the other way that it's triggered is through UDFI for the IRA only, not the 401k. And so if you have a property with a mortgage and you put 50% down, 50% is mortgaged or leveraged, 50% of the income is going to be subject to UBIT tax after deducting 50% of the expenses, 50% of the depreciation, and the first $1,000. It's going to be factored. So it doesn't mean don't buy real estate with a loan inside your IRA. It means educate yourself on what this looks like if you do it, right? If you do a syndication investment, same thing, right? You're buying a little portion of that real estate, and if there's a mortgage on it, which there almost always is, it's going to trigger that UDFI tax. Now, syndications are a little different because you're going to have so many losses to report the first few years, so you won't really have to deal with this for the first year or 2 or 3 even. But once you start to show profit on that, it will be a factor. So something to educate yourself on. Again, the solo 401k is exempt from UDFI tax on leveraged real estate only, not from UBIT on running an active business. And let me talk about flipping real quick because this comes up a lot. The general rule is about 2 flips a year inside your 401k or IRA, and you'll fly under the radar of having to pay UBIT tax on that income. But the other factor is, what is the general nature of the retirement account? If all you're doing is flipping real estate, it's probably going to trigger that tax. But if you're like a buy and hold investor, or even a private lender primarily, and then you flip a property here or there, 1 or 2 a year, you're going to be okay. You can consult your tax advisor for more on that. I've also heard that you can do up to 3 to 5 and still get away with it. But again, the other X factor is, what is the general nature of the account outside of just flipping real estate? So something to bear in mind. Okay, what are the disallowed investments? Well, simply put, collectibles and life insurance. And collectibles, baseball cards, stamps, paintings, coins, that sort of thing. You can do precious metals, some precious metals, gold and silver and a couple others, but not just coins. And so no collectibles, no life insurance. There is a way to do life insurance in the 401k, not the IRA for sure. Most of our clients are not doing life insurance or even interested in that inside their retirement account. And then the other thing is disqualified parties. Stop. Okay. So if you invest in either a disallowed investment or a disqualified party with a disqualified party, which is your immediate family, you and your immediate family, your spouse, your children, their spouses, your parents and grandparents are all disqualified persons, which means none of them can personally benefit from the retirement account or anything it owns. None of those people can do what's called sweat equity on anything that the retirement account owns. None of them can be paid by the retirement account for performing a service. Actually, you can't perform a service and you can't get paid. So you'd be actually violating 2 different rules there. As a real estate agent, I can't go represent myself on a property that my IRA or 401k is buying, even if I don't take a commission at all, even if I give it all back as like a closing cost credit to my IRA, or I don't take it, and the seller keeps more of their money or whatever the case is. I can't do that because I'd be providing a service. You can do white collar work is okay. Blue collar work is not, right? So you could administer the plan. You can make investment decisions. You can pick out the color of the paint. You just can't paint the house yourself. Okay. So those are disqualified persons. This comes up a lot with short-term rentals. Can you do short-term rentals in the retirement account? Absolutely. Short-term rental income can be great compared to long-term rental income. Now, don't run it like a hotel, because that's going to trigger some business type taxes potentially in UBIT, but run it as like an Airbnb, and then short-term rentals by the night or whatever, and that money goes back into the retirement account. It's great. But a lot of people, almost always, when I get on the phone with somebody and we're doing a consultation and they ask me, hey, can I buy short-term rentals? Yes, but I know why you're asking. You want to go stay there sometimes, right? It's going to be rented 51 weeks of the year, but there's going to be that 1 week where you're going to go stay at it. You can't do that. You can't stay there. You and your immediate family cannot benefit from it. Okay. So I just want to be clear about that. All right. Now, this is a little bit wordy, and I'm sorry for that. Feel free to take a screenshot. I'm going to go through it because it's important, especially in the first 3 months or so of 2025. So this is the deadlines to contribute and establish solo 401k. So the Secure Act actually allows employers to establish a solo 401k for the taxable year after that year is over. Pretty cool. If the plan is established by the tax filing deadline for that taxable year, right? And so there's different deadlines, okay, to be aware of. I don't have all that on here. Adopting businesses with the tax status of partnership or corporation, S Corp, C Corp, can establish a 401k by the business's tax filing deadline, including extension. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Adopting businesses with the tax status of sole proprietorship can establish a solo 401k by the business's tax filing deadline with no extension. So April 15th. Okay, so there's still 4 months left. No, 3 months left to do that, right? That's funny. Why can't I do that? February, March, April. Yeah, 3 months. All adopting businesses can make employer contributions to the 401k by the business's tax filing deadline, including extension. Okay, so that's that 20% of the profit or 25% of the payroll that I was talking about. Adopting businesses with tax status of a partnership can make employee contributions to the solo 401k by the business's tax filing deadline, including extension. So these are your multi-member LLCs, partnerships, that sort of thing. Adopting businesses with the tax status of corporation can make employee contributions to the solo 401k by the end of the taxable year. Okay, so this is the one caveat here to note. If you're S Corp or C Corp, it's too late. It's too late. It would have had to been set up in 2024 for the employee contribution only. Okay, because it has to be done through payroll. It has to show on the W-2 that you made that contribution for the year, and the year is over. So there's no way to run payroll retroactively. There may be some hoops to jump through with a CPA or tax advisor that I'm unaware of, but we operate under the premise that once it's past December 31st, then it's too late to run that payroll for that year and show it on your W-2 and still make that employee contribution. So it's too late if you're S Corp or C Corp. Not too late to set it up for the year. It's too late to make an employee contribution. So again, I bring your attention back to the fourth bullet point down. All adopting businesses can make employer contributions to the solo 401k by the business's tax filing deadline, including extension. Okay. And so you can create the plan and still make that employer contribution by the tax filing deadline, even if you're S Corp or C Corp. Adopting businesses with tax status of sole prop can make employee contributions to the solo 401k by the business's tax filing deadline, no extension, April 15th. Okay. So hopefully that's clear. Take a screenshot, read it over and over again if you're thinking about making this work for the prior year. And actually, this is good education for even moving forward for when you're going to make the contributions as well. Most people wait until the year is over to make the profit sharing contribution because it's a percentage of the profit of the company, especially if you're sole prop. It's going to be a percentage of the income. If you're a corporation, it's a little bit different. You kind of already know at the end of the year what it looks like because it's on your W-2, but not for sole prop. Usually you want to get your taxes ready to file so you know what you're going to show on the income, and then be able to make that percentage calculation for the employer contribution appropriately, make the contribution, and then file. All right, so hopefully that's helpful. This is just a one screenshot of the IRA, self-directed IRA versus IRA LLC versus solo 401k. You can kind of ignore the self-directed IRA. We don't do those. That's the one where you have to go through the custodian for everything. No checkbook control. So the two on the right, obviously the massive difference is the maximum contribution for the solo 401k. Another thing to note that I didn't talk about, and shame on me, but I'll talk about it now. The solo 401k has Roth and traditional built into it. Okay. So in the same plan, you can have a sub account for Roth, and you can also have traditional. You can also have all Roth or all traditional. IRA is either a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA, but it's not both. And so when it comes to doing things like, putting more in your Roth, obviously the solo 401k is superior, but also doing Roth conversions is much easier in the solo 401k because it's all built into the same plan. The 401k also has a super catch-up as part of Secure 2.0, effective 2025. If you're between the ages of 60 and 63, the IRS is allowing what's called a super catch-up. So instead of 7,500 if you're over 50, if you're between, again, if you turn, so this is in the year, if you turn 60, 61, actually, it's easier to say it like this. If you are 60, 61, 62, or 63 in the year, you can make an $11,250 super catch up instead of just $7,500. So the contribution goes up a bit for those people. Why 60 to 63? I have no idea. Write your congressman. Some arbitrary number. I don't know. Of course, the IRA does not have the self-employment requirement, but the 401k does. We talked about the UBIT on leveraged real estate. Something else we didn't talk about is the personal loan. So the IRA does not have a personal loan option, but the 401k does. So you can borrow up to 50,000 or 50% of the total plan value, whichever is less. Both husband and wife, if they're on the same plan, by the way, can both take out a participant loan. You can have as many loans as you want at one time. You just can't exceed the 50,000 or 50%. Again, whichever is less. Paid back over a period of 5 years at an interest rate of prime plus 1, or 15 if you use that money for a primary residence purchase. And you can use that loan for any reason. We have people who have clients who have set up 401ks, and they want to fix and flip personally. So they also want to do some investing in their 401k, of course, but to get their personal fix and flip business launched, they roll over 100,000 as an example. They borrow 50, and then they use that 50 to fund a fix and flip or two personally, which is the sponsoring business of the 401k. So they can put more into the 401k, right? And live off of some of it. So it's pretty cool to do that. Some of our clients have used that money for paying off high interest credit card debt. So you can use it for any purpose. And again, no custodian required for the 401k, but yes, a custodian required for the IRA, but we bypass them with the use of an LLC. If you would like to talk more about your situation, and please get those questions in the chat. If you don't have any, if you have any, type them in. I'll be happy to answer them in a second. If you want to schedule a consultation, SenseFinancial.com/consultation, complimentary. I'm happy to jump on a call. And then now we'll take questions or comments or anything. So what do we got, if anything? I don't see any. Oh, I do see some. Never mind. Go ahead, Leah.
All right. So, yes, we do have a couple of questions today. And again, as Brad said, if there are any additional questions, please don't hesitate to ask. You can use this time to type them up in the Q&A tab. The first question is from Serene. Do you qualify for a solo 401k if you have an LLC, but also you are a W-2 employee as well?
Great question. And I didn't cover that very effectively. The answer is yes, you can. Again, 2 requirements: legitimate self-employment activity and no full-time employees outside of you and a spouse. Okay. The LLC has to be legitimate self-employment activity. So it can't be like a holding company with real estate investments that's kicking off passive rental income that you're generating. That doesn't qualify you. You have to have earned, like actively earned business income. So flipping real estate, depending on how you report short-term rental income, that could be considered active business income. So yes, but it depends on the nature of the business in that LLC.
All right. The second question is also from Serene. You mentioned custodian. How is your company different than me just going to direct to a company like Equity Trust myself?
Oh yeah, great question, Serene. Thank you. Well, if I know Equity Trust, which I do, they offer full custodial accounts like I was talking about. And I think they also offer checkbook control, although I'm not 100% sure on that last part. So of course, the big difference is when you have a custodian, you have to go through. I talked about this in a bit, and this question came in early on, so maybe she heard my answer on the difference between custodian versus non-custodian, or bypassing the custodian. But Equity Trust is a competitor of ours. They're a great company. I have nothing bad to say about them. So I think you'd be okay going with them. Of course, I think we do a superior job from a customer service perspective, but I'm also biased. But the difference is with checkbook control, you bypass the custodian. So hopefully that makes sense. And then also, you're welcome, Serene. Thank you for that. To add one more thing, many of the people who choose us over a competitor, now we don't win them all. Some people end up going with Equity Trust or another company. But when they choose us, it's almost 9 out of 10. Because I always ask why, like, hey, you came back. Why? Well, because it was easy to get a hold of you guys. Like I could just text and get an answer in like 30 seconds or 10 minutes or whatever it was, right? I could email and get a quick answer. I could get on the phone with you with no problem. I didn't have to wait days or email only support or whatever the case may be. So for what it's worth, I get a lot of feedback like that when they choose us over a competitor, is because they can talk to somebody that knows what they're talking about and without too much difficulty. So hopefully that helps.
Right. We have a third question now from Stephen. If I contribute 31,000 into my employee 401k Roth, can I also contribute 8,000 into outside Roth IRA?
Oh, I like it. Yes. IRA and 401k are completely separate from each other. So you can absolutely do that. Furthermore, you can actually do, okay, I'll talk about this. So the answer is yes, you can, Stephen. You can contribute more. So how I laid out the contribution limits, that's kind of more of the traditional way of contributing, not traditional funds like pre-tax. That's part of it, or Roth. When I say traditional, I mean conventional. But you can do backdoor Roth actually as well. You can make what's called a voluntary after-tax contribution. This is an employee contribution. And you can go all the way up to the maximum allowed, either 70,000 or 77,000 if you're over 50. Excuse me, 77,500 if you're over 50, as even if you don't show enough income for the profit sharing to get you up there. Because if you make this voluntary after tax contribution, you're paying taxes on it today, this year, and you're putting the money in the 401k, and then immediately you're going to convert it to Roth, and now you have more Roth. So you could actually max out the contribution limits to the 401k by doing that without having to show as much income as it would take if you're doing like straight employer contribution and employee contribution. So I'm happy to answer more questions on that. I know it's a little bit complicated, but thank you for kind of triggering that thought, Stephen. Although something that's super cool. So there's 3 types of ways to get money in Roth. There's a Roth contribution, which is like dollar for dollar added to your taxable income. So Stephen, if you put in 31,000 into your 401k Roth, you're still paying taxes on that money today, whatever your tax rate is. But if you instead do that as a traditional contribution and then invest in an illiquid asset like a note or a syndication, something like that, some kind of private loan, it's illiquid, right? It's hard to turn into cash. If you can actually convert the asset to Roth instead of just cash. And so now when you go get that valuation that the IRS requires from a third party for that illiquid asset, they're going to value it at less than what your principal investment was. Typically 30 to 40% less. Like it can be really significant. We had a client do this with 50,000 on a note, a mortgage note, second mortgage note, and it came in at a value of 21. And so they converted this $50,000 note to Roth at a taxable income of a taxable amount of $21,000 instead of 50,000. So that's the way to hack your way to more Roth. Happy to answer more questions on that or talk about it offline. But with that knowledge, I'm not sure I'd ever make a straight Roth contribution to my solo 401k. I think traditional and then invest, convert asset.
All right. And the next question is also from Stephen. If I start a home business, can I start a solo 401k?
Yes, you can. Absolutely. Again, as long as it's legitimate self-employment activity. Yeah. You don't even have to make a bunch of money. Heck, you don't even have to make any money. You just have to be in business, right? The IRS fully expects people to have up years and down years when it comes to being self-employed. It's all about the activity. And the reason I bring that up is, yeah, you want the income to be able to maximize the contributions to the 401k, but this would also allow you to roll over the existing funds you have into the 401k. With one exception I failed to mention earlier, the Roth IRA is the only type of retirement account that can't move into a 401k. If you want to self-direct a Roth IRA, it has to become a self-directed Roth IRA. The other exception is a inherited IRA. It has to stay an IRA, so you can do that as a self-directed IRA as well. But that's less common. And then the other thing is a Roth 401k can go into a solo 401k because it's already a 401k. So I wanted to make sure I mentioned that.
All right. And another question from Stephen. Money going into a backdoor Roth has to be from earnings and not from investments.
Money going into a backdoor Roth has to be from earnings. No, the backdoor Roth is, like I was saying, it's a way to get more money into the Roth. It's really the voluntary after-tax contributions so that you can get up to the maximum without having to show so much income. Because think about the way the profit sharing works, right? It's 20% of the money. So you're going to have to show, what is the math on that? You're going to have to show, let's see, let's assume you're under 50 for a second, minus 23.5 is 46,500. So you're going to have to show like what, 200,000, give or take, to get to that 46. My math's not perfect, but maybe you don't make enough or show enough, but you want to maximize the contributions. So if you made $100,000, you could still put in up to 77, or if you're over 50, or 70 if you're not, but it's an after-tax contribution, right? So you're still paying taxes on it and then converting it to Roth immediately, but you're not beholden to the 20% profit sharing plus employee contribution only by doing that. So that's the backdoor.
All right. I think those were all of the questions. Brad, would you like to add anything before we conclude, perhaps regarding something upcoming in February?
Yes, thank you. In the next couple of weeks, we are going to be increasing our solo 401k cost. We've been at $600 for an establishment fee for a long time, and so we are increasing it. So if you are interested in doing the solo 401k, I would encourage you. It's not going to be a massive increase, a couple $100, but still, I would encourage you to get on my calendar sooner rather than later before that increase takes place. And we'll be happy to have a conversation. And by the way, just going back to that, when I have a phone call with somebody, it's not a hard sales situation. It's a discovery call. We're learning more about you and your situation to be able to guide you in the right direction. And I may tell you not to do business with us. I may say, hey, we're not a good fit for whatever reason. Typically, it's because your goals don't make sense to incur the cost that it costs to set one of these up. And so anyway, I digress on that. But yes, get on my calendar sooner than later if you're interested. Happy to have a conversation. I promise you'll leave with value. But thank you all very much. Leah, thank you for hosting me and putting this on. We appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to you guys down the road. Thanks so much.